Hi, my name is Grace, and today I'll be talking about an anime called Charlotte. It was made in 2015 and directed by Yoshiyuki Yasai. It's categorized into shoujo by being a fantasy and romance anime. But the show truly depicts youth struggles and self-exploration, even with it being a short series. The show starts with the main character, Yu Otasaka, in his exploration of his newfound ability. In this world, a comet named Charlotte passes by Earth every 75 years, and the dust inhaled gives a small percent of adolescents certain abilities. At the beginning, we see Yu as a narcissistic and self-absorbed adolescent by using his ability to take control of other people's bodies for only a span of 5 seconds, while his actual body drops where it is. Upon learning that other kids also have special abilities, he learns that there is a heavy drawback to each individual, and the gift isn't as simple as it is depicted in other forms of media. Early on to the show, we learn that Yu has a strong sense of family value because of his little sister Ayumi, and we see very little parental figures in the show. Early on, Yu's sister passes away by not being able to control her ability, and we see Yu enter a pit of despair and begin abusing his power. At this point, we see Yu at a new school where it's a secret safe house for the select few with powers, and his new friends try to guide him. Amongst this, Yu learns that he has a brother that's been secretly protecting him and uses their abilities to bring back Ayumi at the mental loss of Yu. The prominent struggles in this happen to be a sense of family values, true versus found family, death, and societal pressures. The main character Yu is seen throughout the anime as an adolescent who's struggling to find the difference between right and wrong. In the first episode, we see Yu doing deviant acts with his ability, such as cheating in school and using it to do more graphic things among the females. He is seen as inevitably going along with his newfound classmates once they find out about his ability, to go to a new school to protect those with special abilities. This is important to talk about, because with the help of those other characters in the show, we slowly get to see a new side of Yu. For the first time, we see something different than deviant behavior. It is when his younger sister Ayumi is introduced. We begin to see a more nurturing side of him, as there are no parents seen throughout the series. With the very little parental figures, it becomes very difficult for Ayumi and Yu to get along. Ayumi is seen as reminiscent towards her mother, while Yu is seen as bitter. But by being forced to take care of his younger sister, it allows for a different tone to be set. At first, we only saw the worst of Yu, but with the pressures of being the best at school, being a good-looking guy, taking care of his family, there's already a lot on his plate, in addition to keeping his ability under wraps and not being found out. Once Ayumi passes away in the first few episodes of the series, it is shown to take a clear toll on Yu. While he may have been older than his sister, she was the one that looked out for him as well by always making him his favorite dinner. This is important because it's the first time we see Yu truly alone in the series, as he's blocking out his friends, shutting himself inside all day, eating the same meal over and over. This is important to depict, as most of us have dealt with death in some way or another. We begin to see Yu going to a depression, and the only ones that are able to help him out are his newfound family and friends at the new school. Later on, we're introduced to Yu's long-lost brother, Shinsuke, whom he forgot about since he was very little at the time. And he found out that throughout Shinsuke's life, he had been protecting Yu and Ayumi with his ability to be able to time travel, with the slow loss of his vision. Later on, we find out that Yu's power is more than just being able to control someone's body for 5 seconds. If he jumps into a body with a person that has a power, he's able to take that power upon himself, and they call it plunder. With that, Shinsuke is willing to give up his power to his younger brother to save his little sister. And with that, we progressively see these two brothers putting themselves in worse for wear conditions to save those who matter most to them. This begs the question, what are you willing to give up for those that you consider family? We see many different characters testing their limits of what they'll do to protect others. Naoya Tomare, the new girl, at the school that guides Yu throughout, is constantly looking over her shoulder to make sure he's okay when going through his depression. She's the one that gets him out. Following that, they will take a new lead. And whereas that's not as much as a physical toll, it can definitely take a mental toll. And that's truly important to identify as well. Some important aspects of this is that Charlotte was published by ASCII MediaWorks. They have projects on manga, books, video games, magazines, and anime, and was helped produced by PA Works. It's a relatively small company of only about 350 people, which, considering the success of their projects, is kind of astounding. Charlotte was well received by the audience and critics. The main drawback from the success was that people were unhappy with the ending, seeing it as a pity to save the main character, seeing the journey as beginning anew. Another interesting fact is that from personal experience, I found that most shoujo animes focus on the female character as the lead, rather than the male. With having Yu as the lead, it changes some aspects of how we are viewing it through our eyes. Especially me as a woman, how I can view it through a man's eyes. Some interesting formal features is how it's placed. Charlotte is about 13 episodes long, yet the story really only begins to take off after around the 6th episode. The first few are more layered with background information as well as foreshadowing. Another important thing is that the music in this anime is very subtle. It has a unique aspect to it. It's usually only used in tense scenes, or if it's very calm, the music will go very quiet to sort of have a little bit of a background. It's definitely not the main focus. What's truly important in this is that this anime also uses the animation stand as its main form of displaying the media through the series. While the background remains fixed, it shows the characters and objects in proportion to their surroundings. This allows for the audience to get some depth from the images displayed on the screen. While there are very few foreground images, this allows for the main character to be the focus of what's happening. Without the foreground, it draws the audience eyes straight to what's happening without any distractions. This is a straight comparison to what's happening with the script. It is very heavily focused on what is going on with these characters rather than any side focus is. Another important thing to go along is that the color scheme of this is directly depicted as to what we're seeing. At the beginning of the anime, when Yu is seen as more deviant, these colors are muted and they don't become brighter until we see Ayumi in the scene. This can directly imply that Yu is seen letting down his walls around his sister. We can see brighter tones when Yu is meeting other adolescents with abilities. But once Ayumi passes away, we're brought back down to darker tones, reflecting Yu's emotions at the time. As we can see right here, on the 3 images, or the 2 images on the left and the bottom one in the middle, Yu's alone. And with that, we sort of see this darkness surrounding him, well, he's not really the main focal point of what's happening. In that, we can see that he's the main focal point, but there's darkness surrounding him. In the one below that, we sort of see that he's surrounding himself by consumption to get away from his feelings. And in the other one, we're more concerned about the rain and the devious grin. Whereas the other 3 pictures, we see Yu with other people, filling himself with other ways of joy, and those scenes are much, much brighter than the other ones comparatively. Secondary sources would definitely be The Day I Became a God, which is an anime also directed by Yoshiyuki Isai, and it has similar themes of being a found family. This series is also seen with very few parental figures and has a similar theme. The main theme of these 2 series is the idea of a found family, where it can be seen as overplayed is very much realistic to how people consider those around them. In The Day I Became a God, the main character is a male lead named Yoto Narukami, and he finds himself wanting to help out someone to be considered his cousin, whereas they're not genuinely related. Yoto finds himself doing anything he can to help his younger female cousin Hina. And with that, towards the end, we see Yoto going through a self-discovery process and what he's willing to do to figure out those where he considers family, even when there's not an end in sight. The other source is Gender and Gender Relations in Manga Anime, written by Eri Izawa. And this goes along, there are main societal expectations in Japan that men ought to be stronger than women in their lives. Men in anime are usually portrayed as the heroes, while there's always a damsel in distress. And Charlotte is no expectation. At some points we do see Yu as the one in distress for a majority of it, but towards the end, Yu is definitely the one in distress. Keep saving others. There's also a notion that these women don't fully accept how strong they actually are, which can lead to another stereotype. Another stereotype is that men's attitudes and aggression will be kept in line by the female lead. This leads to the notion that women always have to be around to calm the men down. And while there's nothing wrong with a woman playing a supportive role, it does allow a common stereotype to arise from this conflict. An interesting idea that goes along with this concept is a gender swap, allowing the men to play the more supportive roles, while the women are seen as heroes. Yet throughout Charlotte, we still are depicted with Yu being the hero at the end. But Tomare is a constant support for him, as well as his family. All in all, I really wanted to talk about this anime because I believe that it was important to see men, especially adolescents, to understand that weak points are going to come, and that the ones that will help you around them are those you consider family, whether or not they're blood related. While it's important to understand how love and loss affect children, especially when there are strict stereotypes that people abide by when living their life. Since these stereotypes and the antithesis of these stereotypes are in the series, it allows for a more outstretch of emotions for the audience to process. And please watch it, because I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you.